is that, people who grew up in Israel, or should I say, it's one thing if you grew up in Israel and you spent your entire life there, however many years, 30 years, 40 years, and you pretty much got used to the, bureaucracy and all that kind of stuff, all the stuff the Israeli government pulls, like just day-to-day basis. I'm not even talking about like political stuff. I'm talking about just regular day-to-day bureaucracy. And you're used to it, and you're used to it to a point where, you're so like demoralized, you're so, compliant that you'll just go along with anything. With anything that the government wants you to do, you'll just go along. If the prime minister says bark like a dog and jump up and down on one leg, you'll do it. Just because it's just government policy, and there's no way to, accomplish certain things without, jumping up and down and barking like a dog on one leg, and then you get a particular, whatever, certification, and then you can live your life according to blah, 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 right? That's Israel. That's living in Israel. That's growing up in Israel. And I say this as a person who made Aliyah 10 years ago. Right now I'm stuck in the States, but, Zat Hashem, I'll get back to Israel. That's a whole other conversation. But, so it's one thing that you're so demoralized that you'll just go along with anything and everything. But what I don't really understand is people who I know personally, who I love dearly. That's why, making this video, I'm kind of making it with a little bit of a heavy heart. Not too much, but a little bit. People who I love dearly, who, made Aliyah, whether it was 15 years ago or 10 years ago or even 20 years ago, who grew up in the States, who grew up with, so to speak, a little bit less bureaucracy. I mean, not that there's no bureaucracy here, there is, but there's way less. There was way less gridlock, growing up. If you grew up in like 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s. Way less than in Israel. It's actually the reason many Israelis leave Israel and come to a place like America. Because they just can't deal with it. A lot of Israelis, they're like, you know what, I just deal with it, and they put up with it, right? Also Olim. But it amazes me that people who made Aliyah to Israel are also now so demoralized to the point where they will comply with anything. What am I talking about, my friends? I'm talking about the whole situation with what Israel's doing now, where they are segregating people or putting people into categories. You either had the vaccine and or you recovered from COVID and you prove that you have antibodies, or you didn't. And they're giving people, certain people, green, I don't want to use the word passports, or green document that is allowing these people to go to places like cafes, restaurants, public spaces, performances, whatever, sporting events, and then people who don't, and those people get treated like lepers. And so, my friends, I had a conversation with some of my friends who who came out kind of like, I don't want to say they attacked me, but they kind of came out against me, and they were saying, one of my friends said, I used to have libertarian tendencies until COVID, and until I saw how people behave, or until I learned about human nature. And I said, listen, I didn't learn so much about people necessarily as I did about how governments can behave, because at the same time, we learn about, we've been learning about back in school, stuff like Animal Farm, stuff like 1984, and other books like it. We saw the movie V for Vendetta, all this kind of stuff, material, let's say, right? Orwellian material, what I like to call it. We learn about it, but we never think, we live in America, or we live in the Western world. I don't know, this is something from a bygone era. This kind of stuff happened, back in the day, 1800s, or the Soviet Union, or, let's say if it is happening now, it's happening like places like North Korea, Venezuela. We never think that stuff like this could happen in developed countries with, democracies and supposedly free countries. And my friends, we see that it is happening. We see that it is happening, and this is something that I learned. Okay? With regards to people, you have to give people the freedom to exercise what's called personal responsibility, as opposed to having a nanny state, at best, which I call soft tyranny or a nanny state, watch their every move. And I'll tell you guys something. I was in Israel for basically almost all of 2020. I was in Israel during the lockdowns, during all this stuff. It's one thing if you say to people, you cannot leave, you cannot go within 500 meters or 1,000 meters of your house. You can't be outside past this hour. Okay, curfew, fine. Or now they're saying, on Purim, the curfew is 8:30. I don't really even know how they're going to enforce this, but okay, that's one thing. But it's another thing if you're telling people, and I'm not going to get into the discussion over the vaccines themselves. I'm just saying there are some people who are going to take the vaccines. This is a reality, right? And other people who are wary of them for whatever reason, right? And some people, okay, fine, they can prove that they had antibodies, whatever it is, but by and large, you're taking people and you're segregating them into two different segments of society. You are separating and dividing people. That's what they're doing. That's essentially what they're doing. And I mentioned in this conversation, and I said, you're basically they're forcing people to take the vaccine. And I had some friends saying, don't believe the fake news. They're not forcing anybody to do anything. I said, they're not forcing, but they're forcing. They're not coming to your house with a needle, pinning you down, and sticking a needle in you, yet. But they're basically like making it like a peer pressure kind of, implied thing. It's not explicit, it's implicit. They're using celebrities. They're saying, if you guys probably heard, in Haredi neighborhood, they're like, we're going to give you free cholent. In this neighborhood, you get free pizza. In Tel Aviv, they're like, anybody who gets vaccinated gets a beer. These are real things, guys. They're giving people beer, pizza, and cholent. What is this, yeshiva? I think, it's funny. It's really funny. I'll tell you guys as a side thing, like when these Kiruv organizations, these Torah organizations want people to come to Torah lectures, this is what they do. They said, we have free pizza, or free sushi, or free I'm telling you guys, instead of the government, like enticing people with food to go get vaccines, maybe they should entice people with food to come here, some Torah. That would be way better. Instead of separating people into groups of who got this and who didn't get that, they should entice people with pizza, with cholent, with a beer. Like I have a friend who has shiur and beer night, or she had one before this COVID thing. And even so it's still called shiur and beer, She gives a lecture, we are on Zoom, we're in the comfort of our own home. You want to grab a beer, you want to grab this. My friends, what are we doing? And so, this is the conversation that I've been having with my friends, and I'm trying to drive to the point. The point, maybe, listen, who knows? Maybe I spent too much time in America. Maybe the American, so to speak, freedom mentality has been drilled into me since birth. I'll tell you guys, like, as a Jew, I put, the Torah is paramount above everything else, even above, I'll dare say, the Ten Commandments. But I'll tell you guys something. There's something so genius. There's something so incredibly simple yet genius in what the founding fathers of the United States did and set forth. And you can argue about, who they were and who they owned and what they owned, but the genius of what they did and the genius of their ideas and concepts, and there's that famous phrase. Two famous phrases, actually. Benjamin Franklin said, or at least it's attributed to him, if you are willing to sacrifice your freedom and liberty for safety and or security, you deserve neither liberty nor security. And I believe it was Patrick Henry who said, what's that famous phrase? Give me liberty or give me death. my friends, he didn't say give me liberty or give me death except for, I don't know, some disease. If he was alive today, he wouldn't say give me liberty or give me death except for COVID. He just said give me liberty or give me death. Especially when you have a situation, when you have this kind of situation. And I was arguing with another friend of mine last night. We were talking about and I was like, we're talking about a thing that's like 99.99% of people don't even, who get it, recover from it, right? And he goes to me, well, that still leaves this percentage of people who don't recover, and this is, he showed me the number of people who passed away in the world from COVID. And I said, listen, X amount of people is still X amount too many. Don't get me wrong. One person is one too many, right? But at the same time, I explained to him what Rabbi Kessin explained to us way in the beginning of this thing, is that this thing is not meant to kill, no matter what you do. And he was telling me that, yeah, it hasn't killed billions because we're doing blah, 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 blah. I said, even if we did and we didn't, this thing is not meant to kill just from the behavior of this virus and the amount of people that do recover, which is 99.9% of people. It's not meant to kill billions of people. It's not meant to kill billions of people. Billions. It is meant to do what's called install pachad mavis, or instill pachad mavis, the fear of death. Excuse me, that's parched. It's meant to instill the fear of death. And Rabbi Kessin explained, he said, if you look at the story of Rabbi Akiva, of what happened with his students, the story of Lag BaOmer, 24,000 students passed away. And what did they pass away from? The Talmud actually, we don't really talk about that so much, but the Talmud actually goes into what they actually passed away from. They passed away from something called askara, asphyxiation. And why was it asphyxiation? Because, as we know, the famous thing, they spoke Lashon Hara about each other. So, my friends, the conclusion is, this disease was sent to us, however it was sent to us, whether it was the Chinese who made it in a lab, whether it was some animal, however it came, whether it was by accident, planned accident, whatever, Hashem used these people as puppets because he needed to stop the insanity, which was our rampant Lashon Hara. And you know what's interesting, guys? We still haven't learned. We haven't learned because if you look at what's going on around us with the media, with politics, the Lashon Hara and the slander goes on and on and on and on. I'm not going to get into the details of it. You guys know. I don't have to tell you. And we're just seemingly not learning our lesson. And the more we don't learn our lesson, the more we continue to go on as we were, even from sitting in our houses, from the comforts of our own homes, and clickety-clanking on social media, all kinds of basically rechilut and Lashon Hara, the more this thing continues. And we, no matter what we do with our vaccines, we have other treatments, they just came out with a treatment. I don't know if you guys heard, an Ichilov hospital. But it's a treatment after the fact. If you already have COVID and you're, and it kills what's called the cytokine storm. You guys probably know that's what really is the thing that, basically, Has v'shalom, people get before it's done. We have that treatment. We have other treatments, which I'm not going to go into, but it's just seemingly this thing is not going away. And we thought it would, Our leaders, I guess, let's say, if you give them the benefit of the doubt, thought that it was going to go away within a couple of weeks or a month or however long it was. Remember, there was 2 weeks to stop the spread. It didn't happen. And it wasn't going to happen until we stopped our yakking and clickety-clacking, my friends. But, back to the original topic, without going off too much on a tangent, what I realize is that a lot of people don't really seem to have a grasp of what freedom and liberty actually is. And they go and they say, well, in this particular case, we have to forego, we have to temporarily suspend, we have to this, we have to that. You could say, listen, if you want to say what we could do what Lincoln did, temporarily suspend habeas corpus, during the Civil War in order to figure out, to basically just do what he needed to do. My friends, that's a completely different story. That's a completely different story. But if we're talking about something where 99.9% of people recover from the thing, and as a result of it, we have to lock down the entire world. And as you guys can see, I'm on a highway right now, and it's full of cars and full of Mack trucks. You know, we're allowed to go to supermarkets, which are packed. Again, I'm going off on tangents now. We know these stupidities by now. I don't have to tell you guys. But the point is, what I'm noticing is a lot of my friends, who I love dearly, do not really seem to have a grasp of real liberty. And I think especially in Israel, they've been living in a place, and I know that this is true, that has demoralized them to the point where they will comply with anything. And it's very, very unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate. And my friends, this all has to actually do with what we recently have been seeing, in a general sense, the fact that Israel right now, unfortunately, continues to have an Erev Rav government. And I honestly, you know, when you hear about it, you actually you realize that the people that are saying this are saying good, as we say. They're saying the truth. But until this COVID, until this pandemic, I really didn't see it in full blast. You know, how Erev Ravi, so to speak, the government could be. Maybe if I would have been in Israel during Gush Katif, I would have seen it. You know, we can watch all the videos we want, right? We can watch all the documentaries we want about Gush Katif, about all these other things. You know, people being pulled out of their homes in different places, but unless you're physically there, you don't really understand. And my friends, this pandemic helped me to understand how much of Erev Rav this government in Israel is. Because now we see, they just came out, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, with an announcement, you know, we acknowledge what happened with the Yemenite children in the 1950s. Not just Yemenite, other kids, you guys probably know the story. Yemenite religious kids were taken from their families. And as far as we know, they were adopted by Ashkenazi secular families. We don't know what happened to the rest of them. People are still looking for their family members. But the point is, the government came out and said, okay, guys, we acknowledge something bad did happen, and we are going to pay, you know, here's going to be a window of opportunity for families to put in applications to receive compensation. What's the compensation? Anywhere between 150,000 to 200,000 shekels. You're talking about like $40,000, $50,000. And but what they're not going to do is they're not going to open the secret files and the cases to tell these people what happened to their family members. That is what the Israeli government is not going to do. And my friends, if you guys, I don't know if you guys heard, and this all comes full circle, that somehow, in an interesting way, this all connects to what's going on with this whole vaccine thing, because there is a political party that came out recently called Rapeh, which means heal, or to heal. And the head of this party, I forget his name, is a doctor, and he basically says, you know, listen, I'm not against vaccines, I am against segregating people according to these designations, you know, with these green whatever, not passports, papers, against draconian lockdowns, ruining the economy, things like that. I'm against it. So what happened? The health ministry, I guess, brought back this retired judge, whose name is Amnon Strashnov, and he basically recommended for this doctor's medical license to be taken away based on what this doctor has been saying. You know, that he's a threat to this and he's a threat to that, based on what he's been saying. My friends, this judge that they brought back out of retirement, the health ministry, he was a judge in a famous case involving this whole Yemenite kids saga back in 1995, when he sentenced a rabbi who brought up this issue. And there was a whole issue with, you know, the rabbi was holed up in his house, and he was, whatever. There was a whole issue with the police, and this rabbi went to prison, and this same judge, who now is taking away the license of this doctor, who's heading this political party, was the same judge who sentenced this rabbi who brought up the issue with the Yemenite kids. Not only that, he's also the same judge, my friends, who sentenced Yigal Amir, the guy who supposedly murdered Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. My friends, you need to understand, and I'm also speaking directly to my friends who are, who have been demoralized by the Israeli bureaucracy and who are now willing to comply with anything. You need to understand that it's always going to be the same cast of characters that comes out of the woodworks in this Erev Rav government. It's genuinely an Erev Rav government. It really, really is. Don't get me wrong. I love my country. I love the land. My biggest regret in life is I never got to do the IDF. It's my biggest regret in life. With all that said, I was 30 years old when I made Aliyah. Somebody told me you could, maybe this, that, whatever. You're going to sit at a desk 6 months, whatever it is. It's going to be a waste of time. My biggest regret was I didn't make Aliyah when I was younger and serve in the army. With that said, just understand, my friends, you live under an Erev Rav government, and my friends, I'll tell you, today is February 24th. We are actually less than a month away from the election, and I'm going to daven, and everybody else should daven, that this Erev Rav government is removed by the ballot box, not physically, not via some, insurrection or anything of the sort. Just people go to the ballot box and then make their voices heard. Hopefully the votes will be counted correctly. These are paper ballots. You can't, you could make a mistake, but you can't make a mistake. The only way you can make a mistake is if you take the ballots and you throw them in a river, like someone did in the year 1960. I'm not going to get into that. But with that, all things, aside, hopefully the people will go and they'll make the right choice. And we will have a whole new different government that will not be enacting these draconian policies on people. They will let people decide for themselves what they want to take, if they want to take it, and just let people be responsible for their own health. Maybe put out a message and say, listen, this is what you can do to build your immune system. Of all the things that I've heard from leaders in this whole thing, one thing I haven't heard, my friends, is, let's say a person like Dr. Anthony Fauci come out and say, hey guys, here's what you can do. Have ginger, have this, have that, do this, do that, get vitamin D. I've never, ever heard him say that. In fact, my friends, they want us to stay inside and not get vitamin D, right? They want us to stay inside and be freaking miserable to the point where we just capitulate to whatever the hell they want. My friends, I'm not spinning conspiracy theories. I'm just asking you to think along with me. I know it's difficult. It takes effort to think, like I said before today. It takes a lot of effort to think. Nobody wants to take that effort, It's like my friends who would rather go, and I get it, rather go to, a kosher supermarket because everything there is kosher as opposed to go to a regular supermarket and having to look at the labels. Nobody wants to think. It takes effort. It takes time. It takes effort. Sometimes it can be a headache, but my friends, I'm asking you for your own sake. Just think. Just think. Use your brain. Think. Don't be a sheep. Don't just go guys, at the risk of offending anybody here who lost family members and where, right? I also did. My grandfather lost his first family who were liquidated in Berdichev, right? Before he met my grandmother, he lost his first wife and his kids, and also my great-grandfather, okay? But you know what? Back in the day, before this even happened, people were going to their big rabbis, their big tzaddikim, and they were asking them, what should we do? Should we leave? Should we stay? Should we go to Israel? Or at the time, Palestine? Should we go to America? Should we go to England? And a lot of the rabbis said, no, stay here. You can't go. It's just this. This guy's just crazy. He's just whatever. He's just talking. He was talking. And the people that were saying that he's going to do more than talking were branded conspiracy theorists. Until conspiracy theory became reality and 6 million people died. My friends, what I'm saying to you is, Pirkei Avot says that don't trust yourself for a minute. But I say, yes, it's true, it's right, but sometimes you have what's called your intuition. And if your intuition is telling you that something is not right, something is, you can't put your finger on it, you can't explain it, you can't, articulate it, but you know something isn't right, then listen to your intuition. I promise you guys, if you listen to your intuition, you're not going to lose. And listen, if your intuition is telling you the opposite of what I'm telling you, okay, so be it. And I'm just telling you what my intuition tells me. And my friends, the only thing I have to say as a kind of a last idea is, don't let people and don't let the governments or the people who are supposed leaders to demoralize you into thinking that you have to so easily give up your freedoms, because you do not. As my friends even said, nobody's coming to anybody's house. Nobody's coming to anybody's house with a needle and pinning them down and putting a needle in their arm. And if they start doing that, then people, unfortunately, it'll be more or less too late, and people will start to have a problem with that. But we don't even want to get to that point, right? We don't even want to let it get to that point. What we could do is just voice our opinion and say, listen, I don't agree with this policy, right? Again, not even having a in-depth conversation about vaccines themselves. I'm talking about just the policy of these, papers. Papieren, as they said in Germany, right? Papieren. Where's your papieren? Guys, I'm a former Soviet citizen. You ain't got to tell me twice. Or even once, for that matter. Anyway, guys, it doesn't say give me liberty or give me death, except COVID. It says give me liberty or give me death. Or as the title of this video will be, probably, give me liberty or give me Israel. Alright, guys, I'm going to the Ohel, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I'm going to do some davening, personal, for the nation, just for people to come to their senses, and also for people to realize that this whole thing is from Hashem, and that we really need to wake up and reevaluate how we've been behaving. Because really, at the end of the day, this whole thing it relies on one thing: how the Jewish people are with each other. And you can even go so far as to say, not even religious versus secular, but just even within the religious community, how we are with each other. And we really need to just take a good look at ourselves and say to ourselves, maybe we need to change something here. We need to wake up and change something here and start acting, just like a mensch towards each other, instead of just like attacking each other for having different opinions, speaking Lashon Hara about each other, all these kind of things. Alright, guys, it's been real. I hope anybody didn't misconstrue anything I said, and if you did, what can I do? Alright, guys, talk to you later.